Welcome to the course of Level 8 API Development Tutorial. This is part 10. Inside this video, we will start all about API development from first phase. Now inside this first phase, we will see setup and application settings. Also we had discussed inside introduction video of this course, that is, in the first stage, we will create the normal APIs without any authentication. So if I back to slide. So normally this is our API development phase 1. It means without any authentication we will create normal APIs. As we know, inside Laravel we have the available authentications as JWT, Passport and Sanctum, but we will use these authentications in later videos. So inside this video or inside this first phase of API development, we will use our employees table, means we will create a migration model. So we will have our employees table. Inside that employees table, we will have the columns as ID, name, email, phone number, gender and age. So basically we will store the employees data inside this employees table. So for this first phase of API development, we will have the APIs as create employee, update employee, list employee, as well as let's say delete employee. So inside this video, this is our first part of this API development phase 1. So we will do our project setup as well as we'll do some application settings. Up to last video, we had seen all the basic concepts what we will use inside this course. So to create a Laravel project, simply I will copy this composer command, copy that, back to terminal, and currently we are inside this Laravel folder. So I will simply pasting it here, and let's say that this is API phase 1, this is project name. So what I will do, simply press enter. It will take some time to install this folder, means Laravel 8 setup, and successfully, as we can see, that the project has been installed. So if I back to folder structure, here is the folder called API phase 1. Here are the files and folders. So simply I'll open this API phase 1 project into VS Code, and here it is. Now next we need to connect this application with the database. So if I back to browser, let's open up all about my phpMyAdmin, log in with the admin credentials, click here databases. Let's create a database with the name something API phase 1. So if I copy, create, database created. Right now there is no table. Back to editor. To connect with the database, open up the file called .env. It stands for environment variable files. Now here inside this, as we can see, that we need to pass our database connection details. So database we have called API phase 1. In my case, the username is admin and this is admin at 123. It may be different in your case. This is my phpMyAdmin username and password. So successfully now we are connected with the database. Now let's create a controller which is going to handle all the operations of API. So if I back to terminal, first of all let's clear this console cd API phase. This is the folder what we had installed, and let's say that we are going to create a controller. Right now this application is a fresh installation of Laravel. So what I will do, let's say that inside this app folder, http folder, controllers folder, here we have controller.php. So what I will do, simply to store our all APIs or to store the API controller, we will create a folder inside this controllers folder. It means we will have an API folder here. Inside that folder we will have API controller.php file, and all the operations what we had discussed like create, read, update and delete API, all those methods we will place inside API controller.php file. So if I back to terminal, let's use the artisan command to create controller files of php artisan make controller, and we want our API folder inside controllers folder. So API /, and inside this we will call it as the file as API controller.php. So if I copy the whole command what I typed here, back to slide, pasting it here, and this is the command what we have used. So if we go to terminal, press enter, controller created successfully, back to editor, go and reload. And I think that the syntax actually we have used to create API controller inside API folder is not correct, because this time instead of getting folder inside it, we are getting actually API controller. So first of all, let's delete that. Back to terminal again, and the same command we are going to use, but this time we will use the /. If I back to slice, only what we had done, we have used this / here. Now save these changes, back to terminal, press enter, controller created successfully, back to editor, go and reload this directory structure. Now as you can see that inside this app, HTTP controllers, we are getting our API folder. Inside this folder, we have now our API controller file. So inside this controller file, we will write all the methods which is going to do create API, list API, delete, and update API. So first of all, let's create those methods first. So public function, let's say create employee, because we are going to moving with the employee example. So here if I write a single line comment, that is create API. Now next we need to create another method, something called public function, let's say list employees. If I write one line comment again, this is list API. If I scroll down, we need to create another method, let's say public function get single employee. And if I type again one line comment, let's say single detail API. Now the next two methods we want something update API as well as delete API. So let's say public function update employee. So here's the comment call, this is update API. And the final API we want, or the controller inside this controller file, that is for the delete operations. So public function, let's say delete employee, and again we need to type one line comment, that is this is something delete API. So now inside this API controller, these are the APIs we are going to create, something create API, list API for showing or displaying single detail of employee, update API as well as delete API. Now next we are going to pass some parameters inside these methods, like for this create employee, what parameters we want. So while creating employee, we want the request instance. So here we are using request class, so I will pass it here, and we will use request instance. So when we hit this API, means when we hit this method, simply we will pass our body parameters as well as the header section. So how can we access those values from request? By using this request instance. So simply we need to use inside this method. Now next, inside this list employees, we don't want any request parameters because this is the API. Simply it will display all the employees what we have inside our table. Now next, here we have get single employee. So here what we want, so inside this get single employee API, simply we need to pass the employee ID, and by the help of that employee ID we will retrieve the data from table. So simply here we need to pass the ID. Now scroll down, here we have the update employee. So for the update API, what we want, we want updated data inside our request instance, means requested body parameters as well as the ID value. Why ID? Because on the behalf of ID value we will update data. So inside this update employee method we need request. Here we will have the request instance. By the help of that we will read all the body parameters, and next we need an ID value. Why this ID? Because by the help of this ID value, what we are passing here, we will update our table data by the help of request body parameters. And finally we have delete API. So for the delete employee we need only the employee ID. So here we will write the ID. So these are the parameters what we have passed according to need inside all these API methods. So in the next video we will create route, model and the migration file. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.